everybody. Today, before I start the class, I have a question for you all. Now, you must have seen the thumbnail, you've read the title, you know what you're watching, okay? So, I have a question before we begin, and you're going to answer this question at the end of the chapter, okay? Or at the end of today's class, sorry. Because I want to understand whether you're grasping the concepts that I'm trying to explain to you, okay? And how well you're grasping those concepts, okay? So, the question I have for you is, number one, what was the aim of the Bhakti movement, okay? And number two, why do you think it became so popular? If you can't understand the aim of it, it's a little sort of a nuanced answer, okay? But just tell me, why do you think the Bhakti movement became so popular among the masses, okay? That is one question. Forget the aim part comes later, but answer the question, why do you think the Bhakti movement became so popular, okay? Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to Unimonks. My name is Padmajji Chauhan and I'll be teaching you for the CUET history domain. Today we start with the 6th unit of our syllabus, religious histories using the Bhakti-Sufi movement or the Bhakti-Sufi traditions. Alright, so the first subtopic we have today is a mosaic of religious beliefs and practices. Now, we've talked about this previously as well when we were studying Mahabharata, when we were studying Buddhism, right? The rise of Vaishnavism and Shaivism, right? Vishnu, Shiva and the goddesses people have started praying to them, okay? People have started a sort of, they're moving from Vedic traditions more towards Puranic traditions, right? Now, these sort of developments are happening because of two processes, okay? Number one is because of the dissemination of Brahmanical ideas, alright? By that I mean the Brahmanical ideas that were previously only meant for the upper classes, right? And only meant for men who were well read, the ruling elite and the priests, now are being spread among women and among people of the lower castes, okay? So because of that, therefore, dissemination of Brahmanical ideas, these traditions are becoming more popular, okay? Secondly, because the Brahmins are reworking, okay? They're repracticing, they're sort of accepting new practices coming up, new beliefs coming up, and they're reworking these ideas so that they can integrate them into societal norms, okay? This is why these two practices are becoming, the practice of Puranic traditions and praying to Shiva, Vishnu and the goddesses is becoming very popular, okay? An example of this we see in Puri, which is in Orissa, okay? Orissa, in Puri, their sort of principal deity was Jagannath, Lord of the universe or Lord of the world, okay? He was seen as a form of Vishnu, and this development we see starts taking place in the 13th century, okay? Now, the goddesses that I was talking about, let's say, praying to them has started becoming more popular because they have been identified as wives of the principal deity, okay? So for Vishnu, you have Lakshmi, and for Shiva, you have Parvati, right? So because these goddesses are seen as counterparts of the male deities, of the principal deities, they too are being prayed to, okay? Now, differences and conflict. Goddess worship had a little bit of a negative connotation to it. It was seen as tantric practice, okay? And now, tantric practices and Vedic practices sort of went away from each other, okay? We will find out why this is as I explain further to you. Now, eventually these practices that were considered tantric and your Vedic practices and your Puranic practices, they all combine together and become a part of the Hindu tradition eventually, but at this time they're seen as separate traditions, okay? Now, this divergence that I was talking about previously is most evident in the Puranic and the Vedic traditions. In the Vedic traditions, people are praying to Agni, right? Soma, Indra, sort of they were not very prominent, right? Their images, They were not very prominent in your visual appearances and in textual evidence either, right? You can't really, when someone's telling you pray to Indra, you can't imagine what Indra looks like, right? But Puranic traditions, they started the concept of ideal worship. Not started, but the concept of ideal worship develops from here. So you have pictures and images of Vishnu and Shiva and the goddesses coming up with Puranic mythologies, with Puranic traditions. Now that doesn't discount the fact that these Puranic traditions that we're talking about were part of the Vedic tradition, right? They were written about them, like the gods that we're praying to, they were written about in Vedic traditions, but they become even more prominent with the coming up of the Puranic tradition. Alright? Now, Vedic tradition condemned practices that were out of the framework of the practices that they believed in. So, sort of like the rituals that are being performed are to be performed by the Brahman itself. Okay? All of these practices, were very essential to the Vedic tradition. Whereas Tantric practices sort of ignored the authority of the Vedas, okay? They were very free-flowing, they were very open to the concept of women praying, okay? They were very open to the concept of lower caste coming and praying, okay? The Vedic tradition, as we've talked about previously, was very sheltered, right? It was only supposed to be, it was only meant for a bunch of people. Whereas in Puranic tradition, or in Tantric practices more importantly, you see that women and the lower castes are being accepted more openly, okay? Their observance of piety, their practicing rituals is more accepted within the Tantric tradition, okay? Now, poems of prayer, early traditions of bhakti, okay? So, with the early traditions, you see poet saints emerging, okay? Communities of devotees emerged, developed around these poet saints, okay? So let's take examples of Kabir. You have Meera, right? These were the poet saints I'm talking about. We'll talk about Kabir and Meera further in detail as the chapter moves further on. But before we do that, let's talk about the two forms or the two categories of the Bhakti movement or the Bhakti tradition, okay? Two categories, Sagun and Nirgun. Sagun is with attributes, Nirgun is without attributes. Sagun, you worship a god that is present, okay? Like, you worship to Shiva, Vishnu or the goddesses, whereas someone who you can see, right? Or you can imagine, at least when you close your eyes, you can imagine their face, what they look like, right? Whereas in Nirgun Bhakti, you pray to an omnipresent god, okay? The god that you're praying to doesn't have a face, okay? Just has an identity of a god, okay? You're praying to keep peace in your heart, okay? Understood? Sagun, Nirgun? Alright. Now, let's talk about a Bhakti movement, a Bhakti movement, yeah, started by the Alvars and the Nayanars. The Alvars and the Nayanars belonged to Tamil Nadu, alright? This is around the 6th century, okay? They sang hymns in praise of their god in Tamil and, only in Tamil, okay? They sang hymns in praise of their god in Tamil, okay? Tamil that was understood by the masses, not just the ruling elite, but by everybody, the common people, the women, the men, the children, the lower caste, everybody understood this language, okay? Now, the Alvars and the Nayanars, they used to travel around while singing these hymns, okay? They traveled from place to place, disseminating their ideas in the form of hymns. And when they sort of came across certain shrines, they identified those shrines as the abode of their god, and therefore they built temples. Later on, temples of those gods were built at these places. Now, as time went on, they became more grand, okay? Alright. Oh, also, sorry, I didn't tell you whether the Alvars and the Nayanars, who they prayed to, right? Whether they prayed to Vishnu, whether they prayed to Shiva. That is your job. Little bit of work you have to do a little more. Tell me in the comments down below, alright? Comment down below who did the Alvars pray to and who did the Nayanars pray to, okay? Alright. Now, if you're liking the video so far, you'll see a little QR code on your screen. Scan that and download the Unimonks app, okay? Over here, I'm giving you an overview of what is going on in the chapter. Whereas on this app, I'll be giving you live classes. You can have questions. We can have like a question answer session, okay, a live chat with me where you ask all your questions, get all your doubts solved. I will give you study material, organized proper study material for your CUET 2024. I will give you tests based on the chapter-wise test, book-wise test, unit-wise test, whatever you want to call it. We will be giving you tests for you to practice, okay, for CUET 2024 and many, many, many other things, okay? So scan the QR code, join us, join our community. You take full advantage of the resources that we have to give you so that you can crack CUET 2024 with flying colors. Apart from that, do follow us on our Instagram page, on our Facebook page, join our Telegram group, and finally subscribe to our channel. Alright, so you're always up to date with everything related to CUET 2024. Okay? Now, moving on. While we're talking about the Alvars and the Narayanars, let's talk about their attitude towards caste. So I've told you, we've established this. The Bhakti saints, the Bhakti movement in itself was not confined to the rich ruling elite. Alright, it was not confined to a certain category of people. That was the beauty of the Bhakti movement, right? Women could pray as well. Lower castes were involved in worship as well, right? Therefore, the Narayanars and the Alvars, their movement was seen in protest of the caste system and of the dominance of the Brahmins. Okay, this concept, this idea, this theory that I'm giving you is corroborated by the fact that people from all walks of life joined their movement, okay, joined the Alvars and the Narayanars. Different backgrounds including soldiers, artisans, peasants, Shudras, untouchables, everybody, women, okay, everybody was accepted into their movement, okay. There was no bar on whether you're a man, a woman, coming from a higher caste, coming from low caste. They did not care. Anybody could join their movement. This is why this movement is seen as a protest against the caste system and against Brahminical dominance. Alright? Now, their compositions were revered as very important. For example, one composition by the Alvars called the Nalagira Divya Prabandham is very frequently called the Tamil Veda. Okay, this book, this composition is seen as important as the 4 Vedas written. This book, by the way, this composition, sorry, I keep calling it a book. This composition is written in Tamil, okay? So, you know, it is understood by everybody alike, right? Men, women, children, educated, not educated, but like rich, poor, anybody could understand what is written in this, okay? What the composition is trying to tell you. Whereas the Sanskrit Vedas, the 4 Vedas that are written in the Sanskrit, were only meant for the Brahmins, right? For the elite people who knew the Sanskrit language. That is why this book, the Nalagira Divya Prabandham, is revered as being very important, okay? And is revered as the Tamil Veda, okay? Now, I talk about women devotees, but who were these women devotees? Let me give you 2 examples. Number 1 was Andal. She was a devotee of Vishnu, okay? She was immersed in her worship to Vishnu, and her compositions are widely sung till date, okay? Many people in many temples, her compositions are still sung. Apart from that, in the Nayanar tradition, we see Karaikal Ammayar, okay? She was a devotee of Shiva, and she adopted an extreme form of asceticism, where she lived her life entirely for the worship of Lord Shiva, okay? Her compositions are preserved till date in the Nayanar tradition, and they too are sung in the temples of the Nayanar tradition, okay? So I sort of give you an answer here, right? I talked about the 2 women, the 2 gods they prayed to, and I told you what tradition they belong to. So you can tell me now down below who the Alvars prayed to, who the Alvars worshipped, and who the Nayanars worshipped. Alright? Now, these women, they gave up their social obligations, okay? Their social obligations of marrying, of having children, okay? And their compositions, just their lifestyle and their compositions were seen as questioning the concept of patriarchy that was that was existent at the time, right? A woman, she's leaving all her social obligations. She's leaving the idea that she needs to get married, that she needs to produce children, right? And devoting her life to the worship of a god. That in itself is such a rebellious thing to do, right? That is why their compositions, their actions, everything was seen as questioning the patriarchy existent at the time. Okay? Now, their relations, the Alvars and the Narayanars and the Bhakti relations, the Bhakti movements at the time, their relations with the state. So, we'll specifically concentrate on the Alvars and the Narayanars for right now. They received occasional royal patronage from the Pandyas and the Pallavas alike, okay? Now, the Narayanars were very against Buddhism and Jainism, okay? An explanation for this is that all of them were in competition for royal patronage, right? They all wanted to get patronized by the royal household so that they're established, okay, so that they gain that importance among the people, right, among the ordinary people, that even the kings are praying, even the kings are a part of our movement, even the kings believe in our movement, what we are doing. That is why the Buddhists and the Jains were seen as competitors by the Narayanars. Okay, that's why there's an explanation to why the Narayanars did not like the Buddhists and the Jains. Okay, now Chola rulers gave land grants and money for the construction of temples of Vishnu and Shiva. All right, you can see these temples in Tanjavur, in Gangaikonda, Cholapuram, and in Chidambaram. All right, all these places that were at one point capitals of one or the other Chola ruler, they have made patronized buildings of temples of Vishnu and Shiva at these places. Okay, now they did this in order to claim divine support, right? If you can claim divine support, that automatically means that you have established power among your subjects as well. Because if the gods want you to be at the position that you are, therefore no ordinary man is going to question, right? Is not going to question the gods. Correct? All right. The one final point before we finish this class. The Tamil hymns that were sung in these temples, okay, they were also patronized by the Chola rulers, and they took it upon themselves to compile these and not compose really, but compile these into one solid book that was called the Tevaram. Alright, remember this, the Tevaram. Now, if you remember the question I asked you right at the beginning, give me an answer for it in the comments down below. I hope you understood, or at least you realize what the answer for that question was. And I hope you like this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions as well for me, leave them in the comments down below. Please don't forget to subscribe to Unimonks. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.